This is a very special comparison review just for you between Seat Leon and the Seat Ibiza. What are the differences? Also, we will feature the TGI engines, compressed natural gas, CNG technology or Erdgas in Germany. Are they actually better than electric, petrol or diesel? We will find out everything for you on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. Today with Thomas in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! What a beautiful scenery on the German island of Sylt today here, by the way. And I have good company, as you can see, starting with the front and the Ibiza and the Leon. Ibiza in silver. The Leon is a very dark, I would say, maybe is it a very dark copper or just very dark wine red, something like that. You see a little red stitching in this color. And from the front you can see they both come close. The price difference is about 4,000 euros. 4,000 euros more for the Leon, and you see the headlamps, they are a little bit wider, more horizontal, bigger. Both start with halogen technology, and then you can optionally pick LED lights, and both test vehicles here have LED lights today. What's your favorite in the front? 4 meters and 5 or 13 foot 3 for the Seat Ibiza and 4 meters 26 or 14 foot for the Seat Leon. So about 20 centimeters difference between those two vehicles. And if you go for the estate of the Seat Leon, there will be another 30 centimeters, especially for the rear, that you have more trunk. You won't have more rear space, you will just have even more length in the trunk. But the design language is pretty equal. You can see the main design line here starts at the front, dissolves there, and then is picked up here at the rear again. And the same we can see here also with the Seat Ibiza. Here, dissolving, and then it's being picked up again. Just the rear window graphic is a little bit different. It looks somehow sportier with the Seat Leon, and also it looks a little bit more sovereign on the road because it's also just a little wider. But they surely both come close for the exterior. I think it's really a matter of personal preference in this case. But overall, I think they have achieved that both cars have a quite sporty design language without going to the super top sporty versions. And alloys, they vary between 15 and 18 inch for both cars. An exception, 19 inch exclusively for the Cupra Leon. In this case, we got a 16 inch on the Ibiza and 17 on the Leon. So whereas in the front and in the side profile I do not have any clear design favorite, I certainly have for the rear, and that's the Leon. Because the horizontally drawn taillights just look wider, look more massive, and I think it's a little bit better designed than with the Ibiza. However, by this difference you can still then see, there's an Ibiza and this in Leon, and maybe that was also thought. And I think it's also good that we can still see differences between those cars. If you have some cars inside some brands where you can see no difference at all, that's maybe also not too clever. Other than that, both have this typical hatch layout. The Ibiza has a little bit more overhang in the rear, in the lower part here, whereas the Leon is more like this, and that makes it also more seamless in the design. Engines, well, we have presented you both cars in several versions so far. TSI, the turbo petrol engine, and the TDI, the turbo diesel. More 3-cylinder on the left side, here on the right side from my side. the Leon with more 4 cylinders. But now what about the CNG? Well, here in the Ibiza you get a 1 liter 3-cylinder TGI. It's comparable with the 3-cylinder TSI we get there with the turbo petrol engine. And this is bivalent, both are bivalent. So you can still run also normal petrol, and you have difference then how much fuel and how much gas you can actually travel around with. So this is 40 liters of fuel tank versus 50 liters, and 13 kilograms of CNG tank versus 15 kilograms. And here with the Leon, you have a little bit more displacement. 1.4 liter TGI, 110 horsepower. So again, 90 horsepower, 110 horsepower. More displacement, a little bit bigger tank, a little bit more weight, less weight. So overall, you get approximately the same range figures, about 300 kilometers with the CNG and about 600 kilometers with the petrol. Overall, that's a really impressive range. But of course, if you get a CNG vehicle, you should also mainly drive on the CNG because it's really less expensive. You can easily just pay about €5 for 100 kilometers for your pure fuel cost. And with a petrol engine, it's often about €9, for example. This can even be cheaper than an electric engine if you count all the costs all together, depending of course on electricity prices and CNG prices. And of course, in Germany at the moment we have about 900 fuel stations which also support CNG. Italy is a big market. Seat, for example, is selling half of their Ibiza and Leon in Italy as CNG. Because in Italy you get, for example, advantages for the taxation, and also the fuel stations have a very good coverage overall. What's the situation in your country? I would be really interested. Please leave it in the comment section. Acceleration difference is, by the way, well, just about 1 second to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. It's about 10.9 and 11.8. So this won't be such a difference. But here we got the DSG combined here with Leon today, and here with the manual gearbox. So we got another difference right there, and I'm really looking forward to drive both vehicles. This is the car key of the Leon, and let's start here with the bigger one. And although it's not super new, the model, it's still basically timeless. Here with the grey fabric on the inside of the doors, good quality, and also brings this Scandinavian living room style. The top part here is rather hard plastic. This one here then is softer because you put your arm on it. Well, for bigger bottles, not too much space at the inside of the doors. That's a downside. Then the rest of the interior, you can see this is not the super high spec trim, but we still do have a lot of options in there. But you can see the base fabric seats also do a good job. They are quite durable, also with this grey style. Then they already give you a lot of side support in the lower and also the higher area. I think they've done a very good job there. Also some contour stitches at the inside of the steering wheel, a compact one, and it's rather a very clean layout here, not too much playing around. And the top part here of the dashboard then is soft touch. And let's get inside with an important shoe tab, of course, here in the sand. And I'm 1.86 m or 6'1". And we do have the panoramic roof here, so that doesn't leave me so much headroom. still quite okay, also for tall people. If you want more headroom, leave out the panoramic roof, which is again quite nice to have for more light in the interior. It's a good seating position here also for tall people. I also have the seat a little bit higher than it would be in the lowest position, because then it turns a little bit upright, and you know, when your pelvis is upright, it's better than for a long time seating comfort. Steering wheel can be adjusted very easily and in all the ways. Here we go. And those are just the manual seats here. There are also electric seats available, but then again, the price goes up quite easily. And well, whereas the price difference in the base models here, and if you directly pick a style trim level for both vehicles and the TGI engine, it's just 4,000 euros, as I mentioned earlier. When you pick all the extras from the interior, the Leon gets more expensive. So the ultimate test vehicle difference here is 10,000 euros then between Ibiza and Leon. And one of the reasons is, for example, you know, extra price for the infotainment is a little bit more expensive. There's a bigger rim. Then we have the DSG. So some more extras add up. But you can still get a Leon TGI with this 4,000 euros difference only if you just go for TGI and style trim level, and that's it then basically. Interior overview. They have managed to have a very elegant design here, and it's also pretty clean. And what's also nice with Leon is, even if you compare it to the Golf, you can see you have this upper element right there, and then this lower element. And so you don't have a special gap. The Golf is all the way like this, and therefore you have a really visible gap right here between this vertical element. But when the vertical element hits the horizontal one, I think it's no problem. It starts with a 5.8-inch screen. This one is the optional 8-inch screen, and you have the main menu right there. If you press the upper button, you still have a volume knob, and you go to the smartphone connectivity feature. When you press the lower button, you can put in the Apple CarPlay then, but you could also just use the normal Bluetooth function, and the GPS is quite responsive. What a view right here at the top, the northern top of Germany basically. And analog instruments we have here as well, just a small digital screen. And the climate unit is still all analog. I like that. I want to have the direct control also while driving. That's easier. And in the lower part, it's quite hard to put your cable in here. I cannot reach that well, so I just let it plugged in and leave the cable, and then I can plug in right here. That's easier. But you could also use the inductive charging platform, which is exactly at the lower point right there. And an interesting feature, this heartbeat start engine stop button next to a DSG shifting lever. And two cup holders which are not adaptive. I think that's missing, that the bottles are being held tight. Then some more spots right there. And the armrest is really tightly fixed here, very good build quality. But then the inside here, this is really small and misbuilt somehow. They should just have a more open space in there. And now it gets really exciting to get access to the rear. Well, it's not that easily accessible because the rear door doesn't open that wide. And, well, knee room wise, it does exactly fit. Even have some more space in front of my knees when I have the seat as I would be driving. So this compact segment car is definitely for tall adult proof. We don't have that in every car. So we recently had the Mercedes A-Class, and although this one has been grown in length, you still have less legroom than you have here. Pretty interesting. What will it be like in the Ibiza? Well, here I sit exactly quite comfortable. Also headroom-wise that works, so nothing to complain here. We can also have the ISOFIX on the outside of the seat and flip the seat from here already in a 1/3, 2/3 split. But we'll soon, of course, also compare the trunk areas. The car key is exactly the same for the Ibiza. So we're starting with the smaller brother now. But you can also use the keyless entry like this. Just press there to close the vehicle. And when you hold your hand inside the door handle, then it opens. Pretty cool system. Inside of the doors, also hard materials. Just this one here, soft, is basically the same in Leon, but different style. They are now with the bottle holder. Here you can also fit bigger bottles. That's quite nice. Then the interior, we also have grey fabric seats. They have a little bit different style, a little bit smaller maybe, but again, some resemblance there as well. I think also good with the base fabric seats. I can really recommend them. The steering wheel is a little bit slimmer, and the decor elements, you can get them in different colors as well. There's also the FR where you can get a leather red there, so different choices available. And then hard plastic materials on the top. So at some points a little bit cheaper material-wise and maybe a little bit more joyful on the other hand. And now let's get inside the Ibiza. So, headroom-wise, I also have the seat not in the very lowest position, just a little bit pump it up, yaw. And, well, we do not have the panoramic roof here, so I have plenty of headroom. So that's a little bit unfair comparison, but it won't actually change that much then. Maybe the Leon has a little bit, flatter roofline, but here again, without the panoramic roof, plenty of headroom. Steering wheel can also be adjusted like this, pretty easy. When you sit in this interior, the first impression is it's a little bit simpler than with the Leon. The Leon has a more elegant style, I would say, and seating position wise it does come close, but I feel also a little bit more, let's say, cared about in the Leon. This one here is a little bit more basic, just from the very subjective feeling, but still is a good seating position. You can here pump up the seat. Also go in the front like this, and you have this turning knob for the back part of the seat. And even, as a tall person, it's not a problem to find a good seating position. And again, if you go for the FR trim, you have the sport seats. Those are also available. They have a little bit bigger side bolster, but in general, they are a little bit bigger. So if you are rather tall, I will recommend you to go for the FR seats, and then this impression that the Seat Ibiza with the new platform rather feels already like a compact segment car is even stressed with those bigger FR seats. They also come then with fabric, or optional, there's an Alcantara package for that, but at the moment it's not available because Alcantara is rebuilding their facilities because they want to produce even more in the future, getting bigger, but this, this case then, while rebuilding everything and going bigger, they have, less production for the current stuff. And so it can be that the dealer says, sorry, you don't have the Alcantara package. But the FR seats with the fabric will also do just fine. So now the interior overview for the Ibiza. Here again, this bigger layer with the decor element here in matte gray or silver. And as I said, with the FR you can also get a leather red cover here, which looks a little bit better. I think looks more premium. Then top part here is hard plastics, analog instruments. They look pretty much the same than in the Leon. The steering wheel here a little bit thinner. You also can get optionally the 8-inch screen. This one here then is a little bit newer version, still here with a proximity sensor. Then the lower part would be the one where we can access this main menu. Here you get this capacitive button where you can access the connectivity. So also with a cable, Apple CarPlay and stuff, or still the old Bluetooth function. But you can still have this volume knob, and also for the GPS, you have the fixed knob right there. That's different than when some of the Volkswagen models, for example. I like it that you have this knob to zoom, because while driving it's hard to pinch and zoom. It's easy to use this knob. The climate unit is a little bit smaller than in the Leon, but still a manual one where you can easily access it. And also 2 USB ports in the lower part, and you can also get this inductive charging panel here with the 5-speed manual gearbox. Cup holders, a little bit differently arranged, not next to each other. The other one is behind the other one. You can see it right here, but also non-adaptive. Then another cubby hole right there, and the armrest, which we have here, is also fixedly attached. And then you have some more room here, actually, because it's more an open spot in the Ibiza. And now to the Ibiza for the rear, and also not a very easy entry, because the door doesn't open that wide. And now, very exciting, hey, this is a new room wonder for the Ibiza. So my knees do fit here, maybe I have just a little bit more legroom with the Leon, but it's not too big of a difference. What is the difference? That my feet fit a little bit better under the Leon seat, and you can see that the seat is actually, my knees are higher with the seat. So overall, I feel a little bit better in the Leon on the back seat. Let me just lean back for a moment. You can see that I disappear also a little bit. When I lean back, I disappear in front of the camera. So this pillar here is drawn a little bit more forward then. So yes, you have maybe a little bit more room, a little bit more comfortable in the Leon. Here I feel a little bit more cramped, but just in the comparison, you don't feel that much cramped in here. So for a small car segment, this is actually very good. Most of the other competitors have less legroom. Just there's some other legroom wonders like the Honda Jazz, for example. That one scored also very well in this test. I think even better than this one. But overall, of course, this is the part where it has a better price-performance ratio to get the Ibiza. The difference then will be rather in the length of the trunk. I will soon show you that. Other than that, also ISOFIX for your child seat on the outside of the seats, and the mechanism for flipping the seat is also basically the very same. Headroom here in the Ibiza in the rear is pretty good, also for taller people, still it's got some room left. Maybe in the Leon it was a little bit more, and it will not change when the Leon had the panoramic roof as we had it today, because also then in Leon it raises from the ceiling in the rear again. So headroom in the rear will not make a big difference between those cars. So what about the trunk capacity? Well, with the CNG models you lose a little bit of height in the trunk, but that's about it. Here you can see this is a small car segment. Below that here's then the tank, but it won't be different on a normal Seat Ibiza without CNG. And when we fit cabin trollers in here, like this, you see we already get a problem with the with the rolls there. We can put it like this, that's easier. And then you can also see how it's different than with the Leon. But so far, for a small car, you can easily use that, it's no problem. I can also reach over here and then flip the bench. It's of course easier when I go around like this, and then you can load things through. It's a 1/3, 2/3 split. When I go around, and you can see the full capacity like this. And then let's take a look at the Leon for comparison. Here also is flipping the logo to open the hatch once more. And this is indeed a difference. Again, for CNG you lose about 100 liters, but that's just in the height basically. And that's not such a problem, because you can see here I can easier fit the cabin trolley also in a vertical way next to each other. So that's really helpful. So you can see that the trunk here in the Seat Leon is longer, of course, because it is also longer on the exterior. And if I put it next to each other, as I had it in the Ibiza, it's like this. And then let me also flip the seat. I will start at the other side. Let's see here. I'll just go with... There we go. Again, the 1/3, 2/3 split. That you can see. That's what we have. I have some backpacks on the other side now, but you can see it here. Let me just remove them, and then you can flip them around, that you have the direct comparison there to the Ibiza. And here we go. Then maybe switch over to the other side again, just to that you have in comparison. So you can see you can also very well use the Ibiza, but for me the biggest difference is that you can also put those cabin trolleys in a vertical way in, because this, this space here, it's just a little bit higher there, and again it is longer. So for groceries, totally fine with the Ibiza, but if you need a little bit more trunk, maybe for traveling, also going on holiday, then the Leon will still have a little advantage. So let's start with the bigger one, with the Leon, with the TGI, and when you start the vehicle, it basically sounds like a petrol engine. Well, it is basically a petrol engine. This is, by the way, a warning that we have lost tire pressure, but It's not always true. Of course, you should always check it, but sometimes there's also a failure in the electronics and just shows it, although it's not true. But when it's shown, always check outside that you really haven't lost tire pressure. But we are fine with the tires. So basically, now when you start driving a CNG engine, or Erdgas, as we call it in Germany, you wouldn't really notice it immediately. You would rather say, okay, that's a petrol engine and that's it. I think this is also one of the keys to this technology, that you don't have to get used to something totally different, that you can drive something which is basically familiar. Here also with the 110 horsepower, a little bit more displacement than we have in the Ibiza as well, 20 more horsepower. 10.9 seconds is the acceleration figure to 100 kilometers an hour. So that's about a second faster than the Ibiza. Of course, not really a sprint sports car, but the acceleration is quite reasonable. For example, if you go to the sport mode here, the gears are turned up higher. Let's do some 30 to 70. Plop. That's it. So that was quite reasonable from an acceleration. And also sound-wise, could have been the petrol engine, couldn't it? You don't have the super explosive accelerations. At some point I would also like to see cars which are a little bit more powerful also with CNG drive. But so far most customers decide to go for the CNG because they want to drive a very economic vehicle and want to save some fuel, do something for the environment and so on. And therefore, so far, because it's still basically a niche market, they decide not to go for those super high quality vehicles. Well, since this was an acceleration test now, I reset the consumption and now I'll drive rather reasonable, rather normal, and then we can check out how the consumption will play out. My guess from my experience so far should be about 5 kilograms of CNG per 100 kilometers. And you cannot directly compare it that it would be 5 liters, because 1 kilogram of CNG has a bigger impact, energy impact, has a greater energy value than 1 liter of petrol gas. So that's also a key element of how you can really save money with it. You might remember the A5 I've driven with a CNG engine, and that one, we go to the fuel station, pay 20 euros, and the CNG tank is full, and you can drive another 350 kilometers. Here at the moment, the CNG tank is not entirely full. The petrol is almost, and I always get a calculation of the total range. At the moment, it's about 750 kilometers. But again, they're not both super full. So when they're both absolutely full, you can calculate with something up to 850, maybe even 900 kilometers. So about 300 kilometers with the CNG, and then about 500, 600 with the petrol engine. I think that's very good. So range, the total range, will not be a problem at all with this vehicle. By the way, driving the DSG here, the dual clutch transmission, now when we were approaching the traffic light, maybe you've seen, if you really look closely and maybe scroll back, I lifted my left leg just a little bit, because I heard from the engine it was a little bit, as it would be stalling almost. So I tried, oh, wait a minute, I'm in a manual vehicle, I have to raise my left foot and put it on the clutch, but that's of course not the case here. I will retest that now at the next stop, so if this is actually going to happen again, or if it was just an exception. In general, with the DSG gearbox, I'm quite satisfied because it shifts very smoothly. You have almost no transitions between the different gears, so it's absolutely fine. And if you want to have something manual, you can always put the gear lever to the right and then push forward to shift up, or pull backward to shift down. So that's still possible. I would always like to have it in reverse way. We had it recently in discussion. So when I pull, that it shifts up, and I push down. Isn't it the same in rally driving? You know, when you watch the WRC? I'm not sure what they do. Push forward or pull backward? Maybe one of you knows. But here, you know, it's the way it is, but I would prefer it another way. Still, you get along with it. Usually you just leave it in the automatic mode anyway. Now we're already in the 6th gear, just above 50 kilometers an hour, and the car's really silent. So it runs at just 50 kilometers an hour, and here just above 1000 RPM. You can enjoy your ride really. It's also very well insulated from the cabin. The noise insulation is also very well done in this car. I mean, the current Leon generation is from 2012, I think, something like that. With the facelift, they improved the insulation even a little bit more. And you do feel you are in the compact segment hatch. Has a good feedback also from the steering wheel, a very light steering wheel. Some might say it feels a little bit artificial. Then again, it's very easy to steer also when you park maybe inside the city. You don't need much force in your hands. And already as a, let's say, base Leon, you don't have to go for a Cupra or something. This car feels very sporty. So in the compact segment, really good suspension also, good compromise between the sportiness and the comfort. The only thing all MQB platform cars have, so also, you know, the compact cars and from the other Volkswagen AG brands, they tend to have at some point, you know, a little bit problem with the rear axle when you're going over some transverse bumps, that you hear that, you know, bumping a little bit. But that's still, you can bear, you know, you can easily live with that. It's just when you really pay attention to it. I really love how easy this car is driving, how great is actually you're able to control it. It's okay. We're supposed to get in there for the next stop, but I want to drive just a few more minutes with you together. Here, for example, in the roundabout. Here, I can really steer this car very well around here. The car is also not tilting too much to the side. It's just a joy to drive this car, really, even though, you know, you might think, you need a special sports car for that or something, but no, you don't need it. And you can almost have as much fun in the base model here as with the Cupra, because again here, look at the commands, very precise. Just to see the suspension would be, of course, different than in the Cupra, stiffer on the road, but still here really fine. However, I really have to say, the difference between the Leon and the Ibiza, when you drive both, then has diminished a little bit with the new Ibiza that is bigger on this new MQB derivative platform. They really feel more alike, and you really have to question yourself, what is the big difference for that? Here we have a little bit more range, at least, well, we have a little bit bigger fuel tank, as I said earlier, a little bigger CNG tank. But then again, this car is a little bit heavier. So ultimately, it might be the same range then again. So at some point, it's maybe also a question of which concise offer you get at your dealer, because the 3,000 or 4,000 euros difference between Ibiza and Leon, yeah, what is it really? Maybe, I mean, this one here is still a little bit bigger. One difference is, of course, that you can also get the estate here today with the hatch, but with the estate, of course, that one would be a big difference then. But if you pick the hatch, there's not so much difference then again between those two cars. Driving feeling-wise, maybe this one here gives you a little bit more sovereignty than the Ibiza still. Such a beautiful landscape here again, by the way, on the island of Sylt in Germany, one of the very few islands Germany has. Hope you're also enjoying this panoramic drive for that. And well, I've been driving very calmly now, and consumption says just below even 4 kilograms on 100 kilometers. That's really good. So I was even expecting a little bit more. And I mean, if you then think about, you can get it maybe for 120 euros at the fuel station, then 4 kilograms. That's really cool. So you have, you know, like 100 kilometers of range now very hard calculating. 4 times 1.2. Who has it? Okay, so I will help you with 4.8. So just around, €5 then for 100 kilometers of range. That's really decent, isn't it? So it can even be a little bit cheaper than with the diesel. And I can tell you, I'll just do a turnaround here then. This is, by the way, now also easy with the DSG. Just put it in reverse, see how easy I'm at the steering wheel. Not much force applied. Turning this car is actually super easy then. And even from the low RPM regions, it's no problem to accelerate the CNG engine. So I can just stress again, it's the same thing I felt in the Audi A5. It's a great engine concept. I mean, it's basically finished in a development. It's there, the technology is there. The car feels good to drive, it's calm, you have enough power, even though it's not a super sports car machine, but if you compare it with another reasonable petrol engine, it's more silent than the diesel. Yet again, from the lower regions, it feels more silent and a little bit more, refined. You also feel somehow that it's cleaner. You can even watch it at the exhaust. And especially if you keep it with the CNG, you have a fuel station nearby. That's of course the key element then to that. It really also pays off. So, we had this feature with the Mazda Sky Active X where they combine petrol and diesel technology. But on the other hand, with the CNG engine here, the advantages of petrol and diesel are basically always also already combined in here. You don't have to develop something new for that. It's already there. And again, silent as a petrol engine, also feels fun to drive, but at the same time as economic as with the diesel engine. So I can just stress again, I'm really convinced by this engine concept. And if I would buy a car for myself now, and not have the exact possibility to get the charging for the electricity, and the CNG could really be a solution. For me, for example, next fuel CNG station is like 300 meters away or something, so I have a better infrastructure for that. And fueling up, as I said earlier, also is no problem. It takes a little bit longer than with a fuel petrol car, but it's not even that you would go drink a coffee or something, so just a little bit longer, and that's perfectly fine. Just by the way, mentioning the overview in the Seat Leon, it looks really design-wise from the exterior, but the overview from the inside is actually quite good. And also, I'm quite satisfied with the seating comfort as well. I have experienced some more comfort in other compact segment cars. I guess it is more a sporty seating position. That's again the question, do you appreciate that or not? Because the Seat Leon, even with the base model, even with the TGI, the CNG engine or Erdgas engine, is definitely still one of the sportier ones in this compact segment. But again, it is harder and harder to get the big differentiation now to the Ibiza. And now to the Seat Ibiza, also with the CNG engine. Well, first of all, in general, with the new MQB A0 platform, it feels more like a compact segment car, especially if you also have the FR Sport seats. Then this impression is even stronger. We had that earlier in another review. You can check that out. I will link the other reviews as well in the video description, for example. The steering wheel is a little bit slimmer than in the Leon. That makes the car feel a little bit smaller. Also in the front, if you look, in the cockpit area, also while driving. And well, on the positive side, it is more agile. With the shorter wheelbase, you can have a little bit more fun with it, play it around, see how direct the steering here also is. That's really cool. So this is more asking you, please drive me a little bit faster, a little bit more agile. So I would say in a way the Seat Ibiza can be more fun to drive. And especially if you're maybe a little bit younger and want a little sportier. Whereas the Seat Leon gives you more sovereignty. And the Seat Leon rather said, calm down, relax. Road surface, by the way, now also want to test the suspension. The base suspension is really good. You can also get a DCC basically for the Leon and the Ibiza both. Here today without the DCC. Also good to experience that, and also the standard suspension does a good job. It's a little rough surface here on the road. Now it's getting a little bit better. Also our Leon is in front of us now. This CNG tank here just told me it's going lower just a little bit. Oh, look at the small sheep. Oh, isn't it cute? Have you seen? You've all seen in the intro, right? So now it also pops out. Do you want to search for the next CNG station? That's pretty helpful, of course, and then you can pick the next one. But I can still drive on CNG here, and again, same for the Ibiza. You do not feel the difference that you are driving CNG and not petrol. Well, the car is lighter and feels more agile. I also have the 5-speed manual gearbox here now, and when I push it on the throttle, wow. It's a really good reaction, although we just have 3 cylinders here, and that actually doesn't do a negative effect. The sound even seems a little bit better than with the Seat Leon. However, you feel in the Leon that you have a bigger displacement, one more cylinder, and that again adds to the calmness in the drive. So you drive the Leon with less RPM, for example. So I think we drove it about 50, 60 or so, and it was just above about 1000 RPM. And now the road gets better, that you have the comparison. And here when I'm driving 50, let's see, towards 1500 RPM. So both are actually good in noise or sound insulation. So also here the Ibiza for the small car segment, definitely a very good result. The Leon, well, is it quite at higher speeds? It's really hard to tell. Maybe, but there's not much difference in this respect, and that proves how well the new Ibiza is being made sound insulation wise, definitely. Again, I think the biggest impression from the change is that the steering is slimmer here. You have a little bit less room for the cockpit. Everything is not so much driver oriented as in the Leon. That's also a difference. And again, the shorter wheelbase, you want to throw the car around just a little bit more than with the Leon. So I think it depends on what you want. If you want to be sheared up a little bit more, then maybe the Ibiza is more suitable for you. If you're really more appreciating this, more sovereign feeling from the segment above, then the Leon is suitable for you. So although the cars have become closer with the new platform change here, also the room you have on the interior, there is still then, especially when driving the vehicles, definitely a difference. In general about the Ibiza, it's really among the most fun in the segment. It also feels really refined. So I think they've done a very good job with the all-new generation. If you also compare it to the previous generation, this one's here feeling more grown up, calmer in the ride as well, but at the same time more precise. So improvements in every respect. Very easy to steer, but then again also very precise to steer again. It's just fun to go around with this car. And again, as I said, a little bit more fun with the Ibiza, a little bit more calmness than with Leon. I think that's the main difference. As for the CNG, here with the Ibiza, definitely also a recommendation from me. Also again, it's very silent and feels refined. works also with the 3-cylinder engine, that's also no doubt, so no problem with that. Again, it makes most sense when you can also recharge as CNG and don't then, run with the fuel all the way. And let's see if we can also empty that one. And when it changes basically the pattern, I also had in the A5, and well, with the whole system here, they managed that usually you do not feel that the car is changing the fuel. So this is also quite well handled. Maybe just in there, there's just some very short difference in the RPM, but most of the time you won't really feel it. As for the consumption, by the way, we expect it to be pretty much the same. There's a little weight difference in those cars, but then again, horsepower-wise, 90 versus 110 horsepower, not so much difference, and the whole system has a similar background then. And indeed, so also about 4 kilograms on 100 kilometers, just 0.2 now higher, but it's maybe also something to do with the road. If the AC on at the moment, you can also turn it off. We have experienced that with the Mercedes A-Class recently. That can make a huge difference if you have the AC on. And by the way, here now again with those uneven road, I think it's doing a fairly good job. But here also again, I feel when you go with the Leon over the uneven roads, I think it's a little bit more comfortable. Also maybe due to the longer wheelbase or something. The overall length gives you a little bit more stability then. Yeah, so 4 kilograms on 100 kilometers again with the consumption. So this comes pretty close then both. So you will have also a little bit more range than with the Leon, as the fuel both and the gas tank is a little bit bigger with the Leon. But it's not that this would be the crucial factor. I think to me the crucial factor would be really, do I need a small car for inside the city, or can it be even a little bit bigger? How tall are you? So if you're a little bit taller, I think the Leon will give you a little bit more comfort. And also, what about the price? So if you get sometimes it can happen that the bigger car is less expensive when there's a special offer, or maybe it's like saying that we have a special deal at the moment with a special leasing rate, and it's not always about the list price of the vehicle. But if you definitely have to pay the list price of the vehicle, well, then there's a 3,000 to 4,000 euro difference between Leon and Ibiza, and the Leon, of course, can be topped up a little bit more. So with the Ibiza, if you put everything in it, you cannot score 40,000 with the Ibiza. That's really hard. But for example, Leon TGI with all equipment in there, you can also score 35,000. So that's a good aspect, by the way. The actual real price of the test vehicle. So yeah, we'll just slow down here. It's a closed road here. So total is 25,000 with this car here, and the total of the Leon is 35. So even if the base price variance then just vary in 4,000 euros, if you have all the equipment inside, because the Leon can be equipped with some stuff more, then the price gap will rise. And see, this is very interesting that the overall price gap then is even 10,000 euros from the list price then. Wow. And as much as I personally prefer the Leon to drive, because it gives me this calmer drive, more sovereignty, when you look at that price point then, and if it's really that difference, then of course you might think, price performance wise, you can hardly beat the offer that the Ibiza is giving us then. And since this was a very bumpy road, now let's move again to normal tarmac. to show you some more of the performance, and also that you can hear that this car is also actually quite silent. By the way, also a difference to the Seat Arona, to the small SUV, which sits on the very same platform as this car. The Seat Arona is louder in the interior than the Ibiza, just, you know, because of the building form. And I mean, we can also do some acceleration, which we did earlier, like 30 to 70. And I'll start in the second gear then and go to the third gear. So let me see. Oh, that rolls quite well. 30 kilometers starting in second gear, and let's go now. That was 70. So you maybe realize that went a little quicker than with the Seat Leon, but I think it's also very good result here from this engine. I mean, just 3 cylinders and CNG. Who would ever expect then sporty performance from that? And I can tell you, it's still fun to drive the car, although we have an engine which doesn't sound sexy because everything, environmental stuff, boring. Still fun to drive from acceleration and also performance-wise. Performance also in the corners. See here now how precise and very well to handle this car is, although it's not a sports variant. 70 kilometers an hour and slalom, very stable. At the same time, not so much wind noise from the outside. So especially when you get the base variant, really good in the price performance. And here still with the CNG version, in some markets you get those special offers then now that those CNG versions are subsidized. At the moment the price is pretty much equal or maybe a little bit less than with a diesel, but it's more expensive than with a petrol. But then again, if you think about that in a long-term one, you pay like 8-9 euros for a petrol engine per 100 kilometers for fuel cost and just 4 or 5 euros for the CNG. Then it can pay off after like 1, 2, 3 years, depending on how long you drive. And the more you drive, the more the CNG will actually then also pay off. So again, a very interesting concept, and I can stress again that I really like the CNG stuff in general. So now we dropped even below 4 kilograms on 100 kilometers. And again, do not compare it to 4 liters, because it's even less basically, because 1 kilogram again of CNG is worth more than 1 liter of fuel. So, what do you think, guys? Pretty interesting comparison, Leon and Ibiza today, and also really good impressions from the CNG. Really a question of price and what you exactly want from the car, if you're Leon or Ibiza. And CNG, I do see a bright future when more people are willing to change to this technology, and there are also projects for artificially producing the CNG. That's also possible. So you can combine it, for example, when you producing hydrogen from renewable energy, at the same time then produce this artificial methane, because methane is basically the CNG fuel. Maybe something will also be derived from LGs in the far future. There are also artificial diesel fuel from that deriving. So it is still possible to have a combustion engine and make it as sustainable as possible. That's also one thing that's been shown today. So when the CNG tank is empty, I get a message in the central screen and also in the instruments, and then I can directly search for the next fuel station with CNG. Here we go. And that's the next one, 16 kilometers away, but no problem. I can get there also with my fuel tank, of course. So here, of course, in this rather rural area in the very north of Germany, not so many stations, but it will be better than in the more crowded areas. And now we're here at the next fuel station. This one here is a special one because it just serves CNG. Usually it would be just a normal fuel station which also serves CNG. But it's really interesting because they also calculate the price here for you, because usually you just see 120 euros per kilogram. And then you can say, yeah, you know, diesel is 120 or 130 and petrol is 140 or 150. It's not too far away. But then, because 1 kilogram of this CNG, so 1 kilogram of the natural gas, the methane, has a bigger power value than 1 liter of petrol, then you can calculate it would be, comparing like, it would be 80 euro cents per liter. And that then, of course, you see that it's really cheap comparing to the other fuels. And here we go, just open the normal fuel cap. On the right side you have it's the normal one for the petrol then. On the left side there's a small one for the CNG. Don't mistake it for the LPG, the liquid power gas, by the way. This one is about 40 bar of pressure and it's often retrofitted, third-party application. And the CNG, higher pressure, about 200 bar, is usually then equipped at works equipment because it's the more complex technology, but it also burns cleaner. So, and here there are different technologies. The older ones, you have this nozzle and then you often have another lever. You have to secure it then. This one here is a newer system. You can just put it on there and then you secure it like this because there's a pressure in there and then it is secured. And now I just press a green button here. And then we go. There, my money is going away. And you see, it's basically going step by step. So it takes a little bit longer than with normal diesel or petrol, but it's not taking that long that it would be worse, you know, to go for a lunch stop or a coffee as it would be with an electric vehicle as a supercharger station, for example. So you just take some more time, depending, of course, also how big your tank is. And if it would be totally empty now, about 15 kilograms, this tank here is for the whole capacity, you would just pay 18 euros and everything is full and you have about 300 and 350 kilometers, something like that, for 18 euros. I think that's pretty decent and it will pay off quite quickly. Here we have about, you know, just seen at the value on the inside, just half of it. I think it will fit some maybe 7-8 kilograms. And as soon as it's full, it automatically stops, so you don't have to do anything. This is live on tape here, so for half the tank now, you will see how long that takes. We can do, there we, one more, a little bit more there. 7, just a little bit more. I think we're almost done then. But you can see, just count down in the time code and see how long it really takes. So when it's really cold, of course, it's a little bit more uncomfortable than at the normal fuel or diesel tanking. But I think you can still, yeah, now we're finished. 7.56 kilograms, so it's that almost half. Yeah, we're done. And then I just actually release it again, like this. And I can put it back and we're good to go. And now to our conclusion for today, Seat Leon versus Seat Ibiza and also the CNG Special. Well, from the exterior they do come close indeed. The Leon, of course, a little bit bigger, especially when you compare hatch and hatch. When you have the estate, it will be a bigger difference then, and you cannot really exactly compare them. From the interior room you have available, due to the new platform the Ibiza has, it really comes close as well, and you cannot really say you have so much more room in the Leon. But from driving I did feel differences, especially for taller people, and you know, it was a little bit more sovereign on the road, the Leon, with a little bit more displacement from the engine in the direct comparison for the CNG engine. And just, you know, from suspension wise and steering and so on, the Ibiza was a little bit sportier, more agile to handle. It was more, you know, saying drive me, drive me, drive me. And the Leon is already a sporty car in the compact segment, but still it gave me a little bit more tranquility or sovereignty. And so overall, if I could choose freely, I would still go for the Seat Leon myself. But then again, if you look at price performance, the Seat Ibiza is the price performance winner for today. And talking about CNG, I'm really a fan of it. I think it's the best mid-term solution until we have batteries that are being produced in a more sustainable way, until we have all the electricity coming from sustainable resources for the electric vehicles and everyone can charge at home. I think CNG is the best solution. It's a very clean technology. It's not so complicated to produce, also from the whole life cycle costs and the resource you use. It's, for me at the moment, a very good solution which is already on the market, but hardly anyone sees it, except for the Italian market, as I told you earlier. And Seat will also take a major role because they, Luca De Meo, Seat CEO, just announced it, they will take the major role in developing the CNG engines for the whole Volkswagen AG from now on. So let's see what to come there. I think we'll more go in a way of monovalent cars, so not bivalent. Monovalent then means bigger CNG tank, hardly any fuel tank left, but then you have more CNG range. I think if you just decide for CNG range and you know your fuel stations there, it also makes sense. What do you think? Seat Leon or Seat Ibiza? Which one would you pick? And what do you think about the CNG technology? Thank you so much for watching Autogefühl, and be sure to tune in next time.